Mary had her breakfast without any milk.
Actually.
Mary had her breakfast without milk, but the milk is coming. She's calling the window washer. And there is Dad, the breakfast maker.
And he's having breakfast without any milk.
Oh, no.
Maybe I feel a little guilty now.
Yeah.
Already?
Paul feels a little guilty now. Guilt is a good thing.
Like that fellow that ate the tomato the other day, didn't he?
That was me, wasn't it?
That was
Oh, I knew that was good. Dad, I just did that for you.
Mary Dennis, I was wondering if you forgot us up in cable. 715-798-3857. Let me know. Duh, ring.
You didn't say what time it was when you were talking.
Well, usually you don't have to do that. Most answering machines give the time. You don't eat those with your fingers, Clarence. You use a knife and a fork. Stop it!
Thank you, but I don't have it.
The underside, it's hard to do it with.
Yeah, you know it,
It's hard to do it with soundbite. And C-SPAN, which has become the cable channel of is committed to
He must think that I
You have to make
talk pretty well.
Take salad.
James? He must think that I talk pretty well. Well, I didn't think that.
Mary, take a hamburger and get out.
I mean, it's
Leave him alone.
what about Mark's point
You
about?
gonna let him eat there?
Drive home each night, and he'd get home around 6:30 or sometime like that. And we kids had already been fed so that we wouldn't disturb him when he came home and had his dinner. But we were waiting for him. We thought it was fun when he came home. He'd drive in the driveway. "Oh, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy," we'd say. And he would say, "Shh, the news is on." And he's listening to the news on the radio. And we said, "But do we want to tell him something?" "Shh." And he'd roll up the window of the car to listen to the rest of the news.
And he wasn't even blind then.
No. And so that is what I remember. I remember him coming home, and he was tired. We had to be very careful. Mom
It
said,
hasn't changed.
no. He was tired, and he needed his martini, which he got one or two, and have his dinner in peace and quiet with no kids bothering him, and that's what happened. So that what our communication with our father when he came home from work was, "Shh, the news is on," and the window was rolled up in our faces. And I don't like it. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Camera.
What camera? The video?
This one.
Hello, darling.
You hear it?
I don't think she likes her picture taken. Do you?
That's right.
Well,
You only get the worst. Well, he never changes, though. He always looks great.
yes, I always look benign and omniscient and benevolent.
That's what I was
And
thinking.
handsome.
I never thought of that.
What about debonair?
Oh, there you go.
Oh, yes, of course.
Okay.
Well, now we're
Together and
This is the quartet Family 4.
family four. Okay.
Family 4.
Okay,
We're
David
gonna
was
get a
going to
picture
say.
of you four, okay?
David was going to say a word.
what? I forgot what I was going to say.
How erudite we are.
Okay, Dad, I want you to know that we are going to demonstrate erudity.
Erudition is the right word.
I know. That's the point. And you will see exactly why that's such an important statement here in a moment.
And should we tell him afterwards that he can read, that he was going to get his own copy?
Yes.
In case
In
you
big
don't-
letters.
And you're going to get your own copy of this a little
I can
later.
edit my own copy. all
No,
I
you
want
can't
to.
edit a thing, but you can at
I
least
can edit
have.
my own copy.
I don't think it's good to do.
Proceed.
Okay.
All right, now who's going to set the pace here? Ain't he great? And he's only 88. Now we ask you very confidentially, ain't he great? Ain't he smart? Did research on Doggy's heart. Now we ask you very confidentially, ain't he smart? Hey, what gives? We hear split infinitives. Now we ask you very confidentially, hey, what gives? Ain't it nice? We can our bread evenly slice, and we ask you very confidentially, ain't it nice? Ain't our fault if in food you find some salt, and we tell you very confidentially, ain't our fault. Hear this parole, you can't eat cholesterol, and we ask you very confidentially, hear this parole. Now we say, happy returns of the day, and we tell you very confidentially, that's what we say. Hooray!
Hooray!
Speech!
I didn't realize all this was coming on. I think it's perfectly marvelous.
Yep.
Not that I agree with it.
No, of course not. Shouldn't.
It's the split infinitives that bother you, I'm sure.
Here is a copy in a little bigger letters, and we also have a disc,
Floppy disk.
a floppy disk. So that could be done.
You weren't sloppy, I was.
Floppy. Floppy.
So
Great,
Like that.
wonderful. Oh, and it's laminated. You can take it out in the boat.
Where'd you get the idea, Al?
Oh, he's clever.
Listen, I happen to compose some of those things, actually.
Very
I know.
good.
Not too many, but a few.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Clarence. Happy birthday to you.
All you're gonna say is air.
Yeah.
Yeah, tacksamt mycket.
Well, varsågod, varsågod. This is
Get all that Swedish on that film over there, David.
Ja, jag kan tala svenska, ja. Isn't that right, Paul?
Yeah, that's right.
Have you taught David a few choice words?
No.
I think you should.
Okay, gris means pig.
Yeah, you did tell me that already.
For some reason, yes.
And it says, no special occasion, I just wanted to say I love you. Guess what?
Oh.
Isn't that
I
nice?
think I'll sit.
Here I am, a damn fool, I can't even read the thing.
Oh, you just have to take it upstairs under your telesensory and you can read or put Elvis on.
Well, I can,
David, you have to get a picture of him with Elvis on.
Elvis, yeah, I do.
Yeah. Elvis is alive. Elvis is not dead.
Now, why do we call that contraption Elvis?
Low vision.
oh. I was asking Mary where these words I wanted to wear them tonight. And she didn't say,
Your slightest
who.
wish
She
is
She
my
said there aren't
command.
any.
didn't let any secrets out or anything.
No, I almost got up and got them for you, and then I thought, no.
You mean you already knew you were going to get
Well,
those?
I
Well,
had
she
asked
asked
him
me
if he'd
about
like,
whether I wanted them, and I said yes.
and then, you know, his wife failed him again, and she forgot to buy them, like the potatoes and the.
Well, let me see if I can get them on my feet.
Look at Jeannie.
It's nothing to eat, sweetheart.
Okay, Jeannie?
But I get scratched on
Good
my
stuff,
head.
Jeannie.
You
Oh,
sit like this.
Jeannie, that's a good picture of Jeannie. You want that?
I've got it.
Yes, that's what she loves. Jeannie, can I put my other shoes on, please? Nice girl. Yes, indeed.
She might like this better. Oh, she's gonna rub on this
Take
slipper without the foot in it.
Does it fit?
Oh, beautifully.
Oh,
Just
good.
lovely.
You should have seen me in the men's shoe department. You know,
And much more comfortable.
You still have the...
Did you try them on?
Well, with an 8 on one foot and a 9 on the other, and I said to the sales clerk, well, I don't know. He said, well, are they comfortable? I said, I'm not buying them for myself.
Not
At that
buying
point, he
one.
thought, I told him I wasn't buying them for myself. So then he gave up on me.
You were buying for a Coke.
That's right.
Okay.
Gee, those are nice. They're rubber on the
Yeah,
bottom.
I see.
You can give it to me.
Boy, this is a fancy birthday as far as that. Jeepers, treat. Hell, Jesus.
A certain certain things you remember, that's for sure.
Herr Jesus, no less.
Name was right.
Yeah, right, Jesus.
Harry. Very good. I said very good.
Ja.
Very
David,
good.
tell us the town that Jane lives in.
All I can say is wunderbar.
It's Nyköping.
That's German.
You have
That's
forgotten.
German, I know it's German.
He's forgotten a few
What
things.
did he say?
I said it's German. I know it's German. Of course he knows it's German. I just talk too much.
Ja kann, let's see, ich kann nicht Deutsch gut sprechen.
Yes, das kann ich hören.
Oh, say, wait a minute. Oh, hey, what have I got here?
Beats me.
I like dessert.
Mein Gott im Himmel.
Looks like a new jacket to me.
Nope,
Rolling pants.
No, it's gonna
sort of.
I think I can get up almost as well as I can next year.
All right. We keep for 89. He's working up to 90.
You see those Velcro things? You can see it in the
No, I'm working on,
It's probably zip too, is it out?
That's just,
I'm
You
working
don't
on
have to use the
110.
zipper.
That's the whole point, Clarence. It has a zipper, but you don't need to
You don't
use
have to
it.
use the zipper. It's
You
just
Velcro
zip.
yourself in.
It's a zipper, but it's this kind, rather big. But you actually don't need it if this
Velcro.
works.
Wow.
And this way we figured that Mary could see you from a distance.
She's afraid she's gonna lose me in the woods. Oh, she can find me anytime.
Yeah. In Sweden, we hunters and people out there, they are not so much camouflage. They are dressed up like this because
They are here also.
They don't
want
shoot each
to.
other.
They wear a vest with
Yeah.
that color over the top.
They want to be seen, not to be shot at.
But they're not worried about the deer seeing them.
Shot
Yeah.
at.
They're just worried about not being
Shot.
shot at by some other hunter.
Yeah.
It's just like home.
And,
This is beautiful.
and these are the
Oh, I can go through the wet woods and not worry about it.
and this is also in pockets with the this
Cardboard.
Does it
cardboard.
open to 40 inches? Yeah, I think it does.
Yeah, I think
I'm not that big, I just hate to say that.
But you can
Fits me, right?
adjust the pants down there so that they're tight around your legs if you want
Yeah.
to, so that the
this is possible to adjust like that.
Now, you already gave me something beautiful like that several years ago for rain gear. Do you remember that?
This
Yeah,
is reindeer also. This is reindeer, but
This is Velcro, so you
it's
don't
just
have
that the jacket is Velcro there. That's the whole point.
So you don't have to fuss with the zipper, you can just Velcro yourself shut somehow.
Yeah, but
Oh, here, see?
det förstår jag mycket bra.
Well, does this have the hood in it up here?
Yep.
That's the hood.
Oh, wonderful.
So there should be a hood. There is a hood.
Oh, Clarence.
For some reason, the brand is McKinley.
Sounds like a good Swedish name.
Well, is that a mountain in Canada? McKinley?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Gotcha.
You
You
think
don't
so
have to
too?
use
I do too.
You don't have to use that zipper.
I don't know how to use it. Show how much trouble I have getting zippers started if I'm trying to start this on television. This being broadcast.
Worldwide, Dad. Worldwide.
Down to Texas.
But there's quite a few
wonderful.
there are quite a few Velcro things there. But if you want more, it's possible to sew more of those Velcro things on, so that they're it's even tighter.
But this is going to hold it.
That'll hold it. You don't.
But the zipper is easier because it's bigger. Jane.
Yeah. No, he can see what he wants.
Yeah.
Where's the belt? Oh, that's an old one.
And there's one up around the neck too. Well, if you have the hood up, the hood is in the neck.
Well, he's all choked up about it.
No, but if he has a hood up, it won't be so meant. Help him get the hood.
Yeah, the hood. It's a little thing behind here. Also, cardboard.
Velcro.
Velcro.
Oh,
That's very good.
You look like Yoda.
I'm not a Buddhist.
No, but
Your son is.
the sun is, so I don't know.
Where did you go wrong, Dad?
But
That was smart, I avoided that.
Thank you.
that looks great. Fine.
We're ready for a downpour.
Of course,
But
now
of
the
course,
sun.
it might be a little uncomfortable to have it up there. So the last thing should maybe
I
not be.
didn't think it was.
No, it's,
It was very good.
Well, Dad, before I turn this thing off, do you have anything to say about your birthday to the listening audience?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to another 22 years.
22.
Yeah,
That's a good number.
22.
yeah,
You
well,
picked 22.
I'll be 120 years older than any other American citizen has ever been.
Is that your goal?
Of course.
Okay.
Dad,
I
what's
think-
88 plus
I want to
22?
get a new
Very
patent
good.
in my final year.
Okay, but I think there's some Russians that have outlived you, right? Or
You'll be
something?
on your 5th life by then.
I don't think any Russians have gone up as
We
much as
can't outlive
120 years.
They haven't?
I don't think so.
Isn't 88 plus 22 110?
Yes. The man cannot add.
No. Yes.
Yes, it is.
You certainly do have to destroy the whole story. A smart kid.
All right, let's hear it for Paul.
Yee-haw! Yay!
well,
Any other pearls of wisdom before I turn this confounded thing
Are you
off?
out of film or do you still?
No, I've got
I would
plenty.
suggest that really,
I just
in
cut
the
David's
interest of
head off.
accuracy, that you should turn it off.
Off it is.
I had one.
Signing off from Daddy's birthday. There's Dick.
Good morning, David. It's nice to see you up bright and shiny finally.
Yes, it is. Put on your Texas hat for a minute.
Okay. It's, what was it, mini pearl?
Don't show the label, everybody will still think it's it.
I think, I mean, you can adjust the back, can't you? I hope.
Why, that's no real Texan. It's a fake. It's okay, though.
Yes, oh, good.
We love you anyway. Hi.
Good morning, David. We are in for a great weekend of celebration and 4th of July and sparklers and fireworks and
Parades,
So
parades.
fortunate that all the road dust was
and as
kindly
Peggy
washed
Ann
off
and
our
I
cars.
just said
Yeah.
breakfast is the most important meal of the day.
There, is that better?
That's better.
There, that's better.
The real
That's
long
better.
horn.
Yeah.
And all we got
Can you do this, Dick? Hook 'em horns. Maybe
hook 'em horns.
Hook 'em
That means
horns.
something
That's what we
else
do.
elsewhere.
That's what we do in Texas. If you can do that, people believe you.
Hook 'em horns.
You have anything to say?
Watering the whole lot at once.
Good morning.
Good morning.
There it goes, and this is
Oh, you do?
Have you photographed your own shirt?
Oh, you know what this shirt is, don't you?
That would be your dad.
Yeah, 1988, or when he was 88.
Ah.
2 years ago, we had T-shirts made. Good morning. How are you?
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
He had a sprinkler guy come though.
Berries is a drip through.
Oh, the berry dripper thing?
The berry dripper thing. Linda, are you putting down the berry dripper thing?
Don't worry.
Okay. He likes to watch the football games, and they're usually in late afternoon, and the sun comes in and
Oh,
blocks
yeah.
his way as he
You
sits
told
in
me
front of the
about that.
television, and he sits pretty close to it so he can see it. So he built a sunscreen that fits under the cabinet and just perfectly shades his television from the sun so he doesn't get the glare.
So rather than moving the television,
He
he
changed
did the next
sun.
the
That's
best
right.
way. Okay. So moving the TV
He couldn't
wasn't
do
the
anything
option.
with
The
his real
option was
sons.
moving the sun. Yeah. His re-
He made it so it's perfect height for him.
That's his TV.
It's his TV.
Now, does he still use a remote control even though he's that close to the TV?
I don't know.
Or does he have some kind of special button
Okay.
pusher mechanism?
We're digressing to Sweden. He bought Swedish shirts, and they were drip dry and they were nice, but they had no pocket. That drove him crazy. A shirt with no pocket is useless. So in the tail and back, he just cut out a big piece, whatever you do, seamed it,
Right.
And then in the pocket, he made nice little seams and a nice little double thing, and so
So
he made his pocket.
Jean-Paul Gaultier. He's a precursor of all the haute couture in France.
That's whatever.
The way you
Yeah.
like it tailoring. Yeah. Your way tailoring.
What else is he?
Quotes I've gleaned from people. One, from David, it looked ridiculous, but it worked. So that we want to, another was, how hard can it be?
Right.
Well, that'll come in there.
His
Like any
themes,
other
his
ideas
themes.
of things he's known for by blurting out some of those?
Well, let me go to some other projects he didn't make. He wanted to make a boat, a sailboat. Dad does not know how to sail. He's never had an interest in it. But he's designed a sailboat that he says will revolutionize sailing.
Because it has no sail.
It has a sail. It's all in his mind. I'm not told. He's never made it.
I did.
But he designed his house with a big enough exit from the basement so he can get it out once he makes it. I don't know if he'll ever make it. But through the years, I kept telling him that'll never work, and it did. I know a lot about sailing, but I'm smart enough in my age not to say that will never work.
Not anymore.
Well, not anymore. I say, I learned. What are some of his other weird inventions?
So what?
The water
Well,
flow.
it
but
was like
What did he
a-
make, Dick? A what?
a watercress farm.
It was
For
much
personal
like
use.
a little carp pond, except minus the carp.
Was that cress or crest?
Well, I was corrected summarily.
Okay, got it.
And normally I don't like to be corrected, but if I'm wrong, I have to be
Grammar
quiet.
cop. How about the invention of grammar cop?
Grammar cop.
That's
That has always been
Grammar
one
cop.
for grammar.
Right.
I first
Oh, no
remember
kidding.
that long ago when
Grammar cop.
when the ad "Winston tastes good like a cigarette should," and he goes, "Such grammar, it's as a cigarette should." I
Right.
still don't understand that, but split infinitives
Right.
really bug him.
about. Yeah.
I remember I'd go try to talk to Dad about something emotional, anything. It doesn't matter whether I needed his advice, and he'd say, "Now don't talk like that. Use correct grammar." I thought, well, whatever it is I want to talk to him about, it went away. I slinked off in shame,
Well, we need to really work in grammar here.
Use some
Right.
To really is splitting the infinitive. The to's got to be next to the verb, and if
Right,
it's
right.
not, there's a problem. We can't end a sentence with a preposition.
How about we are going to brilliantly describe all of Dad's accomplishments and see if he goes
Perfect.
crazy. Let's drive him nuts with his own stuff.
Oh yes.
What we're about to do is tell you where it's at. I mean, something like that.
Yeah.
Glaring and huge.
We're going to really tell you where it's at.
Yeah.
Got it down to the
All
middle.
right, eating a cracker.
All that stuff spewing all over.
Yeah.
Tell a story?
And then I'll put Froyo for him.
Tell a story?
You put it in your job?
No story?
No story to tell about Clarence yet.
No. We'll get to that later.
No, it's you glue it. How do you get it together?
There you go.
Yeah.
That'll work.
Go get him.
I did one of those pre-clearance. I'm out there at that day.
See if you get any interest in the camera itself.
Look,
And,
it.
and it looked all right.
Who's
I
that?
don't know how the guys come and do it professionally. They stain. This is pre-staining, and I had to go. I don't know. That's
Alcohol?
it's gonna improve it. We're gonna invent a new new tape.
All I need is one play out of it, but it's got to go.
She's so good. She's good. She's a calm, not the kitchen. She's, yeah,
One lucky bird.
yeah, it's really nice.
Okay, kids.
Hello, David.
Hi, Dave. I wonder who
There
just
he
threw
is.
away these great cards.
What else happened on that trip? It seems like you have a lot more
Girl Scouts.
Humorous information what Mama's had.
Well, we'll have some now. And you have the whole.
Oh, no, yeah. I don't think so. I hope not, anyway. These look great.
Oh, Peg.
Hi, Dave.
Got anything intelligent to say this afternoon?
What a super lunch we just had.
Wasn't that good?
Yeah.
With the nicely carved watermelon thing?
Yeah. Slammed all day on it, you know. While we were off doing it.
Well, I didn't do any
Yeah, and I heard
inappropriately.
you were supposed to. Yeah. Shirked your duty again.
Yeah, there's the one who's mad at me right there.
I'm not mad at you.
Oh, good.
It's your wife that had to do everything that should be mad at you if anybody is,
Really?
right? I mean, you could have had him slicing onions or something.
I could have. I missed my opportunity.
I'll
make up for it.
That's right. Okay, you get to slice the onions when you get home.
Remember.
There's good onions in Texas.
I'm on duty tonight, too. And you're not.
I know, and I'm glad.
We're talking about how we're going to be keep in shape to keep up with the Dennis men who look so youthful.
Yes. And we'll want to live to be at least, 110 or something, maybe. I'm going for 110.
Well, nobody's going to look younger than me.
Well, we will.
Okay. All right,
We
that's
have to keep that as our goal.
right.
We're in cahoots with one another.
Right.
There you go. Oh, that's fair.
That's right.
That's fair.
That's right.
Good of you to try.
We're on our journey.
We'll get good tennis shoes and use them frequently. That's what I suggest.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay, that's all. Goodbye.
Honey, we need your attention, please. Attention.
Mary.
Mary. Clarence.
We're talking.
Pay attention.
Attention, we have a gift. It is Dad's 90th birthday.
Talking.
Who's Dad, quit eating. It is Dad's 90th birthday. We are proud of him. He's done so well. Look at all the great people that are here. We have the first gift of the 90th birthday season. But this gift is not for Clarence. This gift is for Mary. Infinite tolerance. Look what she's put together here. Thank you very much.
And she
Good
puts up with
organizational
Dennis's.
skills. What?
She puts up with Dennis's.
She puts up with Dennis's.
Dennis's what?
Move over.
Let me get it from this side. Oh.
There you go.
Okay, let's get that picture.
Okay, go ahead and cry.
Oops, I'm sorry.
It's all right, you're fine.
Juggled you. You're fine.
So that's why this eagle is on here. Last week, he released an eagle that had been rehabilitated at the Raptor Center at the University of Minnesota.
That's great for you, I think.
So we've had a big week. We have some pictures.
Happy birthday to you, Clarence. Happy birthday to you. I'm going to thank you.
Little help. Little help.
Yay!
Hey, Clarence. Clarence, you missed two. You're only 88.
He has one to grow on.
That's a great idea.
I want to see the part where you give him 90 whacks.
All you people that have had too many drinks, shut up. I'm doing this. That's right, so
She's got the knife, right.
Yeah, she got the knife.
Don't make fun of a woman with a knife in her
Yeah,
hand.
she can cut you. She can cut you.
That's right, buddy.
No, I'm not going to cut anybody. Whoops, it's crooked.
The one who holds the knife.
Crooked canoe?
Is it going to rain before our picnic?
Yes, I hope not. It'd be awful.
Could we be a little more optimistic there, Douglas?
I think it'll be wonderful. I think the sun's going to crack out any moment here.
Crack out.
Crack out.
The butt crack of dawn. It's kind of early.
So this is like New Orleans. I'm used to it.
Why don't you guys stand together there? I can take a shot of you.
Okay, let me get them
Trying
first.
to.
Melissa and Glenn. I know I didn't get you wet.
That's all right. Okay, who else doesn't have a bag?
I don't.
Ready? We're throwing candy to the spectators.
All right.
Oh, the rules are, just so you all know, you
Here's the
cannot
bag.
throw candy at people. You're supposed to, like,
Come
hold it
on.
at their feet.
Come on.
In other words, you may not kill
Take
anyone.
my bags. Linda has ours.
You're taking all the fun out of it.
No, I gave it back to you.
Can we light fireworks and throw them at people?
You're back into the picture.
Sure, David. You do that. Let me give you a...
Oh, are you that close?
Yes, I'm that
Wow, I'm really right in your face, aren't I? Sorry about that.
She needs a bag.
Bye.
Had no idea.
Lauren needs a bag.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello. You look cute too. Why is it that everybody who's under
Is there any other bandanas?
Cars coming through?
Let me have the other bat. Thank you.
Why don't we stand on the other side of the float? Wouldn't it make sense?
Why don't we stand in the grass?
Yeah.
Hi.
Anything.
Yeah, you.
Is there any other bandanas by any chance?
Not bad.
Had to be a check. Sorry.
Okay, everybody. Be like a celebrity.
Kathy.
What?
Were you just saying 20 there?
This time, you know, it's like... Oh, what's she doing? Eating candy? We're trying to get her...
Andy!
They might need a light to see what he's
Okay. Why
But
do
are
I
we
sit
gonna give
here?
Well, you're the birthday boy.
I don't either. Sure, yeah, you should be sitting up here after all. You've had to put up with all of this business.
Mary, do you want a chair? Can I get you a chair?
For the phone. Don't you remember that?
No, I don't.
Unless I'm taking the camera out of focus.
If you would like a chair, will you let me know? And then I'll get the car gas, that'll recover a little bit. I want to get you the garden and Jerry.
You want me up there?
Whoever made this left better talk. I never heard of it.
Mary,
Mary.
Oh, she's gonna.
Dad doesn't like that seat. Oh, she's just gonna go get another chair.
Reminiscing over Clarence's contributions over a wide variety of fields. And we're going to start off with a brief synopsis of the medical accomplishments and then quickly move into the very practical, memorable inventions and original contributions that affected all the daily lives. So Dick, you start off, please.
Me?
Yes.
The reluctant star.
We're off to a good start here.
Everybody
Talk
here
loudly.
knows, well, when I was in medical school, this guy named Ralph Alley said, "Oh, you're Clarence Dennis's son." Well, once, and Ralph Alley was considerably older than Dad. And he said, "I was at this party when Clarence Dennis became a full professor, and I thought he was an intern." I also heard that when Dad was a full professor at University of Minnesota and he moved to downstate in Brooklyn to become chairman of the Department of Surgery, the secretary thought he was a new intern.
I believe that.
You thought I was an angry medical student.
I'm sorry. I apologize, I'm corrected. I also heard when he was taking out the chief residents to dinner, the waitress said, "Is anyone here old enough to drink?" looking at Dad. But in addition to, the everyday things like putting the first patient in the world on cardiopulmonary bypass and inventing 6,000 surgical instruments, including things still used today, the Dennis clamps, which my chairman uses for his ileoanal pull-throughs, the Dennis tube, which is used...
Not Mary.
on Mary. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that, and I apologize.
You give credit where credit is due here.
Or credit.
And not only that, it was put in by the inventor.
Did it work?
Oh, you're right.
Okay, well, I rest my case. Well, one could go on to 250, 350 papers. One loses count, umpteen chapters. Still in atlases that are used today in articles that were written 30 years ago. But in addition to that, there are many ways that we know Dad other than surgery.
And we would like to take you down memory lane here by the people who experienced these inventions and contributions firsthand. And feel free to interject, but we're going to start off
Not you.
with one of the classics, which is the bomb shelter.
Is that a cue for something?
Go ahead, David. You want to talk about the bomb shelter?
David would love to.
Let me hold that for you?
Would you?
Sure.
Bring it over. Bring yourself over here.
I built it.
Let's let Jim do the bomb shelter.
Let's let Jim do it.
David has plenty of other things later.
The bomb shelter, I can't remember when it started. It must have been something in the world.
Around 1952, shortly after the Korean War, when the Russians were bad guys, the Cold War was going, and they had the big one.
Well, anyway, he got nervous. So I think he took a whole summer just about and built this room in our basement.
It was more than that, it was a year.
Well, you were slow then, because I got my room done quicker.
I know it was faulty. Joe is like a pregnant woman.
I did that on purpose.
Yeah?
Yeah. Well, anyway, he built the first room, and he had all these ductwork going through the walls so the blast wouldn't come in, and electrical wires through the cement, and little hooks into the cement to hang hammocks, and it was wonderful. I wired it, of course, and it worked wonderful.
They don't work anymore.
Yes, it
Well,
does.
it must have rusted.
There's no light bulb in it, but it works.
No, they don't work anymore.
And all this when we're all at school, he's at work, and Mom said she wouldn't be caught dead in the thing, but we had it anyway. Then I think it was probably after the Bay of Pigs he got nervous again when I was about to go to college, and he said, build a second room. We need someplace for supplies, and then we'll live in the first room. So I put together cement forms and all this stuff, not knowing anything about it. And I had to go downtown New York City to find a manhole cover and its frame for one of the exits onto the front steps. And we built this door that we were going to have a swinging concrete door in, which worked like a charm. I should say, the first time the cement truck came, Dick had, remember the alarm system, just in case things broke inside, you had an alarm system that you were going to, there was a buzzer so the cement mixer would know to stop. And the cement mixer had to turn around twice in the front yard, I think, and just totally trashed it. And the second time around, the cement mixer came, and they aimed a little bit better. Yes, the wall bulged a little bit, but it was okay. It didn't fill this whole basement with concrete, fortunately. And then I think Dad had to take the forms down, and I think he swore at me the whole time.
Oh, he would never do that.
Well, I think he probably.
For those of you who don't appreciate it, all poured in one piece. These are some forms you need underneath to hold that weight. And Dad made it. All we little kids were allowed to do was tie wires and all this rebar. But this was a room that will be there long after the Empire State Building goes into gravel.
I can also say about this room that not some of us were a little bit, we didn't mention it to any of our friends, ever, that we knew anybody that would do anything like this. I mean, it may have been a work of art, but not everybody was.
Now, I have to say, the day the cement mixer was coming for the second room, I don't mean to think that Dad's paranoid, but I don't know if he was worried about Russians, Chinese, or the people from the Bronx. But right before he came, he thought, how are we going to defend ourselves?
Yeah.
So he built a little two cones that came together in the middle of the concrete, 10-inch concrete wall that you could put the muzzle of a gun through. And that went in, one of the last things that went in before the cement mixer came.
You can understand why we weren't all thrilled.
And you can understand why we're all crazy.
But you have to understand the engineering genius.
Oh, I understand that.
That this thing held together until the concrete hardened. And now no one's ever going to move that sucker.
And may I ask today what it is being used for?
Nothing. It's empty.
It's a
I thought it was
spider
a wine
haven.
cellar.
No, the light bulb burned out in it.
Yeah, and that was the end of it?
We went back 3 years ago,
I know you did.
and the light bulb burned out. But that door, this is a reinforced concrete door that's that thick, that opens on two leaf springs were the hinges.
We use the ends of truck leaf springs with 1-inch steel bolts.
Buried in this concrete as you poured it.
Now,
And that,
clean that one up.
and that sucker of a door opens and closes perfectly.
With a finger or something.
30 years later.
When Dick was courting me and he had a visit to a trip of meeting in New York, he took me to visit the bomb shelter. So that was his way of courting me.
Well, you know the people in the house?
I think you should
No,
have
we
been.
didn't, but I knew 989 Edgewood Avenue. I wrote him a nice letter and I said, you know, I grew up in this house. Could we come by and see it?
See the bomb shelter?
I didn't say that. They didn't know what it was. And they called, you know, they wrote back and said, sure, our pair will be there. She'll show you anything you want. Fine. So we went there and we looked from top to bottom. The insulators of the crystal set antenna you made for me are still there. The wire since disintegrated, but the insulators in the tree and the bomb shelter's there. The rope of that held up the deer that you butchered in the basement is still there. They did take the deer that you butchered in the basement. They did take down the rifle range. And that must have been a lot of work for them. Now I have to say a rifle range, more than anything I wanted a BB gun. And I think my mean old father knew that I'd go out in the neighborhood and shoot birds and squirrels and windows, which was all true. So he got me a 22 instead. And he completely finessed me. Because he knew that as crazy as I was with the BB gun, a 22 was different. And I wouldn't go out in the neighborhood and shoot squirrels and birds and people.
Oh, wait a minute. The mayor of Pelham Manor had us come over to his house to shoot grackles out of his tree.
But not with my 22.
And it was at the request of the mayor. So
But not with my 22. So he built a rifle range in the basement. And there was this long porch and this little teeny window up there. And he said,
in the bomb shelter?
You stood in the door of the bomb shelter to hit this thing. And he was afraid that a bullet might go through that window, through the air, and a mile away come down and hit somebody. And we had to fix it. So we took these, I don't know, 2x6s out of the coal bin that, we'll talk about that in a minute. And so we had these from the floor to the ceiling to cover the window in case I missed. And then he said, well, you might shoot so often in this bullseye as to penetrate the wood and get through the brick wall, and it might go through the brick wall into China. So he put 6 inches of dirt and then another board in front of it. And let me tell you, the only time that first board got penetrated is when Dad decided he wanted to go deer hunting on the Rockefeller estate, and they only allowed shotguns with these slugs. And he has the only shotgun in the world with a sight on it. Which, by the way, is perfectly sighted.
Of course.
And he shot the thing and sighted it, and it did blow sort of a hole in it.
Well, I could say something else when you're talking about.
Dad was very worried about, a little later in time, was race riots and problems in New York City. And we lived pretty close to the Bronx, and he could just see all this trouble spilling over into Pelham Manor. And he didn't want to have anything to do with it. And by that time, he was crazy about my first husband, Jim Smith. Thought he was wonderful. And he thought of another advantage to Jim Smith. And that was when these race riots started and all these riffraff from the Bronx started spilling over into Pelham Manor, he was going to take Jim Smith, put Jim Smith on the front porch, and he knew that our house would be saved. Yes. Yes, it is. Yes, you said that, yes.
He could charm anybody.
Yes, he could charm
He could.
But he could also scare anybody like that. Dad had it all fixed. We wouldn't be threatened by the Bronx or the Russians.
Well,
Remember holiday magic?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about holiday magic. Thank you. Next. Another thing, you know, we've heard about the bomb shelters, but we've also heard about making kites. And instead of just buying a kite at the local store, we have another story here.
We belong to an island beach sort of thing that you had to take a 1.5-mile boat ride to get to, and we had breakfast out there, all the time, maybe twice a summer, 3 times. And
You did at Yapa?
yes.
Yes.
And instead of going out to the island and taking sandwiches, Dad decided to cook pancakes, which he cooked every Sunday from scratch. And out at the island, he cooked over charcoal with his little thing. He cooked from scratch pancakes. So we had a gourmet meal. And out there, I decided I wanted a kite. And I said, Dad, can you buy me a kite? And then when we go Sunday, I can fly it. He says, buy you a kite, we'll make one. And I said, Dad, you don't know anything about kites. And he said, how hard can it be? How hard can it be?
Just Dick quotes you a lot on
I
that.
do quote you on that a lot. And so, you know, Dad had the latest tools in the basement. He had parts of an old motorcycle, which he turned into a table saw, which, by the way, Charlie used it tonight downstairs. It must be 80 years old, parts of it anyway. And he took a 2x4, and I said, Dad, a kite has to fly. And he said, trust me. So he took this 2x4 and cut these things and did this stuff. And I said, Dad, that's a pile of sticks. And he said, trust me. So he took a sheet, and I don't know if it was a good sheet or not, with a thread, and he ended up with a box kite that was about 3 feet and maybe 1 foot by 1 foot. And it was a work of art out of these little thin, what used to be 2x4s, but were sort of cut up. And, you know, I couldn't wait till the next Sunday, so I took it out to the island, he tied the string to it, and it wouldn't fly at all. And there was some guy there, and he said, do you know anything about a box kite? And I said, nothing. And he said, you need a bridle. And I said, what's that? So he had a knife, and he cut a little piece of string like this and down there and tied the string there, and he said, now try it. And it outflew anything there. And they had these little cups and little triangular paper cups, and we used to steal a stack of them and take one, put it upside down, and it would fly up the string. And this guy would hold 2 boxes of cups before it got. It outflew anything. So the only thing Dad didn't know was how to fly a kite, but he sure knew how to make them. And you know, I don't think he'd ever seen a box kite before. He just knew how it ought to be.
That's how he is.
And with a 2x4 and a bed sheet and how it ought to be, he had a top-notch kite. And it worked beautifully until I put the 3rd box of cups there. And then it got a little lower than the waves were.
Well, moving back to the home front, you know, you may know certain people as adults, but, you know, there's issues when David was young. Evidently, he would not stay in his room. And there was something that Clarence fashioned to keep David confined to his room.
David, you're on.
Well, I was, I guess, what you might call a wanderer. And I'd go over next door to Reenie's. What's that?
Very destructive, too.
Well, we'll save that story for you. I don't remember anything about destruction. But I do remember wandering around quite a bit, and I guess Dad had probably seen too many of those prison films. But he decided to fashion 2, runner things on the side of each of the doors in my room, and got a big piece of plywood and thought, we will take care of this child once and for all. And what he did was he put this board when I was locked, and I cried my lungs out. I remember I thought, this isn't going to work. My MO is destroyed here if I have to sit in this darn room all day. I cried. Fortunately, Mom came up and took sympathy on me and said, get those things off of there. I don't think it's working.
I think that was me.
Were you the one that came up? I thought it was Mom. But in any case, It was a great invention. It would have worked perfectly. But this was probably the only time in recorded history where one of the kids actually outsmarted Dad. My screaming worked.
At all.
Is that wrong, Dad?
I don't remember that at all.
You don't remember the plywood prison?
No.
Similar to what Jeannie has.
Yeah, similar. That's wrong.
Except a little higher. And we painted ghosts on it.
Yeah, we
Dick,
did.
is that thing running?
Yes.
We all
Yeah.
remember it.
Now, one of the other things with Dave.
Back against the door. So Dad went to the basement. He had this conduit that electrical wiring is supposed to go through. And he made this fancy little base, and with a little bit of chain, raised the crib 3 inches off the ground by the chain.
Jane. So the reason for me was quite different than the reason for Jane. The reason for me was I sometimes burst into song at about 2 o'clock in the morning. And it was loud enough to wake up Mom and Dad.
And the next door neighbors.
And the next door neighbors. I apparently really had a pretty good voice. Or at least there was a lot of lung behind it. So I remember one evening, I think it was the only time they ever rang the bell, I was singing. And I was singing something really good. I was getting into it. And that buzzer went off. And I just stopped dead. And it was like, oh my, it was more scary than any of the monsters that had plagued me. I mean, it just scared me. I don't believe I ever made any more noise again at night. Did I, Dad?
I don't remember that.
He
Oh, you don't?
He does now. Fool potential burglars thinking that someone was at home.
This was in Mendota Heights, and Dad was concerned about burglars, and I'm sorry Lissa wasn't here, because one summer when she visited, they had a very sensitive electronic device.
Excuse me, it was Setauket.
Setauket, I'm sorry. Setauket. And Lissa was, I don't know how old, 12 or 11, 10. And when she got up at night, this device, get up at night to go to the bathroom, this device determined she was a burglar. And made horrendous amounts of noise. And then there was a device that heard glass breaking, but it could not tell that from footsteps. And so when anybody walked near it, it also determined there was a burglar. So Dad got very clever, and he made out of his or at least one of his favorite mediums, things, a coat hanger silhouette of Clarence Dennis with tissue paper, and he had a light on one side and a pulled-down shade there, and a long coat hanger, and it was near the toilet. And with just
Sitting on the toilet.
the normal breezes and hot air heat, this thing would move a little bit, and from the outside you saw this silhouette of somebody's head sitting on the john all night long. And burglars were not supposed to interpret that as nobody home. And to my knowledge it worked, because no one broke in that window ever.
Yeah.
But he never figured
They
out
didn't
how
break
to
in any place else either.
See, it worked.
I think we all know that Clarence wears glasses and that the fit of the glasses is very important to Clarence. And through the years, he's devised a number of arrangements to help him get the right fit for his glasses.
Second favorite medium. I'm not sure which.
You'll get it right after a while.
I need some grammar help here.
Well, he should be the one for that. Which one is it,
Anyway,
Clarence?
coat hanger was number one.
Medium is singular, media is plural.
No, but he said second favorite medium.
Second favorite medium,
Just don't split it.
which was plaster of Paris. So Dad made a perfect mold, and I didn't see how he did it, but I'm sure he stuffed plaster in his ears and his nose. But there was a plaster nose, coat hanger, and 2 plaster ears to get his glasses just perfect. And in that era, he put his glasses in boiling water and then put it on this thing and adjusted it just right so his glasses fit him. And it worked. It was, I gotta say, even at the time as I was, 6 or 7 years old and I watched him do this, it worked perfectly.
One of the statements that came
No,
out.
I still use it.
One of the
Still works
statements,
perfectly.
right. One of the statements that came out over the breakfast when we were planning this was, quote, "It may look ridiculous, but it works." So that was one of the.
He still leers out of us in the shop. He just knows.
But it works.
It's in the shop downstairs.
Every once in a while, then we have the hot iron.
Well, at that point it was boiling water. Now we got more
Now
modern.
we have the silicone gel and the flat iron or whatever you call it, and put it on low, and then the ears get dropped in. And
You know, the whole theme of these are solutions to problems you didn't know existed.
Well, now cars were also the focus of a number of innovations, including the car gas pedal.
Dad had to drive, I don't know, 25 or 30 miles to Brooklyn, and as soon as automatic transmission became available, he got it, but his right foot got tired. Now, anybody else would say, so? But not Clarence Dennis. He decided that he could make a left hand, or a left foot gas pedal. So he put in the bottom of his car something that hooked up to the regular gas pedal, came across on the other side of the brake, and a second gas pedal. And you can think of all sorts of reasons how this could get jammed in a very bad way. But this device worked perfectly. So he could use either foot for the brake, and therefore either other foot for the gas. And it worked.
Why didn't he just invent cruise control?
Well, that's our point. He did.
This is the
was
most modern, the precursor of cruise control.
Now, one of the things Clarence is known for is the ability to apply problem solving from one discipline to another. And so we know physicians use stethoscopes. And what was this used in diagnosing car rattles?
Oh, rattles were a problem with Dad. As long as I've known him, if a car rattles, it must be junk. That was number one. But number two, any rattle can be fixed. So he'd drive home from Brooklyn and hear a rattle. And he'd say, I know there's a rattle, I'm not sure where it is. So this little, I don't know, 9 or 10-year-old jerk would get in the front seat and listen for the rattle. And I couldn't hear it. And so then he would have me with a stethoscope, trying to hear a rattle in the car as he'd run the gas or whatever and drive it. And he eventually found the rattles. And I might or might not have helped him, but I like the stethoscope. That's why I went to med school.
But I know there were times when Mom would...
That's right. Well, I gotta say, I wasn't allowed to drive. But one summer, anyway, somebody needed our house in Pelham, so we took his vacation place at Lake Winnipesaukee, and he decided his old Lincoln didn't go straight down the road. And so, I mean, here he is. Here he's got a whole shop, but there he had a screwdriver, a pair of pliers, and maybe a crescent wrench. And he decided to fix the front alignment. So he did. And he was driving, and my job was to look down the bump in the middle of the hood toward this hood ornament and see if it was straight ahead. And I said, no, it's pointing over toward the side of the road. So then he redid the back wheels, too. And when he got all done, it worked.
Well, then we moved to cable, and I think we all look around and see lots of evidence of Clarence's inventions. And just to point out a few, like the canoe carrier.
Ah.
Funny you should.
Yeah, Dad said, I need to get the canoe down to the dock, and Mary's busy canning stuff, and she can't help me. And I said, so? So he goes into cable and has these poor guys make something out of 2 bicycle wheels. And now, over the phone, you just can't picture this thing. And he says,
Who's the bike favorite? I hate
I'm sorry. You see, I misunderstood some of it. A bicycle shop in Hayward. But it comes out with this set of wheels that I think all of us have seen that lets one person with almost no effort because it's balanced take the canoe from the garage down to the water alone, and it works perfectly. Now, I never knew that was a problem because I would have gotten married and carried the other end. I never would have thought of it.
Well, we can all remember the problems of watering up here. And how do you water when they're not here? And take a look at all the spigots and all the timers.
I guess I'd say last time we were here, maybe the time before, out there were 4 timers. Here there were 4. On the other side there were 4 timers. And there must be 29 AA batteries hooking up all this stuff. So that
We kept Duracell in business.
one by one, each zone would go on and off, and then on and off, and on and off, and it would go around the house in perfect order. Every sprinkler was perfectly adjusted. When I mowed the lawn, I mowed around them. I didn't dare touch them. Because when you looked at it, it missed the house, and it hit every square inch of grass, including the Great Wall.
But I remember one summer when you were here, Paul, and you were sleeping out on the porch, and the sprinkler kept hitting the steps and waking you up, remember?
Yeah.
Yes, that was not...
Yeah, it hit the steps, but not the house. No.
Right. Waking Paul, it might have done a good job.
And all of us like fresh bread here. And here was this problem of how do you cut fresh bread where it's warm and hot. And we have the Dennis bread slicer.
We do.
Whoever knew that sliced bread was a problem? You buy Tip Top in this loaf, this awful stuff. It's all sliced. Even the greatest things is sliced bread. I mean, it's an expression, but not to Dad. Not only did he find someone who would bake him fresh bread every morning, but it had to be cut while it was still piping hot and steaming. So I think he's on probably his 80th version of the Dennis Bagel and Bread Slicer, patented.
3 times.
Huh? 3 times. See, I don't know everything. I'm sorry. But I am the proud owner of the 78th Dennis Bread and Bagel Slicer, and we use it every day.
Well, does anybody else have some other contributions they'd like to make to...
There's another cable invention that years ago that Dad would go out in the canoe, and the wind and whatever would make the canoe go around funny, and then he'd have to put this rod down and get his paddle and get it going right. So he put his mind to it and made a little invention that he could steer it and propel it with 1 foot. And I think it went through several versions, but eventually it actually worked.
I think that was a holdover from the gas pedal, just 1 foot. He used a truck inner tube and cut it on a bias that had this long rubber band in effect. And that time he did go to cable, and he had somebody take this pulley that belonged on a clothesline and this piece of rebar and a wooden paddle out there and a little hinge and a couple of ropes. And the rules were no screw holes through the canoe, anywhere. It had to attach with clamps. And I think the remnants are still downstairs, but that sucker worked.
I still use it.
It worked.
But what about the invention he made for you, Jane, the sidecar to go into town during World War II or whatever it was?
She's not that old.
Well,
I don't remember it personally since I was
I've
1
seen
or 2
pictures
years
of
old.
it.
I mean, I don't remember that, but I remember pictures
but
of
you
it.
built it, didn't you, Clarence? The sidecar for the bicycle?
Now, I remember seeing it roped to the roof of the house in St. Paul. The roof of the garage, I mean. I'm
Just in
sorry.
case we need it again. Or...
Well, my favorite story is not an invention, but when we lived on Long Island, and Clarence had to go into a meeting in New York for the New York Surgical Society. And he had his Volvo, his 67 Volvo, which was fairly reliable.
VVV.
But it, you know, it had all kinds of problems. And he was dressed up in his tuxedo to go to this meeting. And he was going to come home after the meeting. But he got into traffic, and I think it was on the Long Island Expressway, and this car started to do whatever it did, boiling over or whatever. And Clarence had this way of opening the hood and tapping on it or adding water to it, or he had all these things in the car, because this happened more than once. So he got out in his tuxedo on the Long Island Expressway, and he opens up his 67 Volvo, and he's doing all these things to this car. He told me that some man in the other lane came by and said, "Hey,
right behind me, you want
if you ever want to sell that car, here's my car." So anyway, he finally got it started, and they got into New York, and he put it in a garage. Wasn't that the story? To the meeting, and he came out to get into the car, and it wouldn't start.
That's right.
So he had to spend the night in Manhattan. I mean, this is more than just an ordinary dinner. Cost was prohibitive. So the next morning, the garage told him all these things that had to be done to this car, and it was going to be hundreds of dollars, wasn't that right?
Exactly.
And Clarence said, "Get it started. I'm going to take it to my mechanic out on the island." "Oh, you can't do that, you can't do that." But you did, and he took it out to Alan, and Alan said,
"Hell, there's nothing the matter with that car."
But I love the image of in the tuxedo with the with the
Not only that, I used the
screwdriver.
pipe wrench to get the cap off the radiator.
And then somebody coming
With
by.
your tux on?
Yes.
Now, was this before or after the rusted around the front light that was patched with beer
Oh, the
cans?
beer can, yeah, right. That was after. You patched the headlight with the beer can. Remember when it rusted out?
I remember something about that. What did I do with the beer can?
You took the rust out around the headlight and patched it with a beer can, and then painted it over.
Something like that.